Yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Now let's get it started.
Are you kidding me? Unreal!
While our HBCUs are mostly known for academic rigor, community, they also know how to turn up.
Does he have it? Yes, he does! And that might be the knockout punch.
All right. Greetings and salutations. Another episode of Fangs up here. And let me move this camera up just a little bit. Just coach. Just a tad. So, man, hopefully it sounds better. We're trying to do a little bit of different things here. But man, before we get started, big shout out HBCU Digital Network. This is home to Herb Stewart and the Black Techies. Also, home to the Fangs Up podcast. And if you're a normal listener, you're like, it's Monday night. What are you doing? Where were you last night? Well, I was with family. It was a long Sunday, but it was a good time, great time to be had by all. But today, we're going to talk about the game that just was, the game that just passed, the Orange Blossom Classic. Also, we're going to talk about a little bit, FAMU volleyball that was. And we're going to do a little story time in the process, man. We got multiple stories and corroborations to go along with some of our fellow FAMUans. So, but we're going to start off with volleyball. With the volleyball team, they got one win over the weekend. So, kind of is what it is. We're going to keep it there. But again, it's early in the season. So, if you're a real FAMU volleyball fan, you're really not that upset about it. You're just chilling. Like, give it a few weeks, give it some time. It'll get there. It is what it is with that. All right. Well, we got that out the way. Now, and not that we're overreaching, but come on. We know what you came for. So the Orange Blossom Classic was on yesterday. We got a little bit of story time. And look, I'm gonna give a big shout out to the kind of the organizer for the Dolphins. She was actually cool. Now, George, I ain't gonna cuss him out in public, but he effed us over at the end of the game. But the main person, she was pretty awesome. So we left yesterday morning. My daughter and I traveled down there. We actually met some family for the game, and I left my bag in Orlando. So my travel bag with all my clothes in it here in Orlando. So fortunately, man, family is everything for me. And as the old folks say, there was a ram in the bush. One of my baby cousins. Fortunately, a brother's been like logging steps. So I literally like going back to the classroom this week. But in the meantime, a brother has lost weight. And so fortunately, I could fit my cousin's jersey. And I had my travel shorts on, which were just some black basketball shorts. And look at God, she had a black FAMU baseball jersey. So I was able to wear that. And when I got to the stadium, the Dolphin person was like, "What's up with your clothes?" And I was like, "Ma'am, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I left my clothes at home. This is what I drove in, and I borrowed the jersey." And she was like, and I was like, "I just brought my camera bag. I got all my equipment, and I left all my luggage." And so she kind of looked at me like, "You're serious?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." So, but it was great time, great fun. Post game dinner after, and honestly, it was good. It was good because, and it was good less because it was dinner, more because it was family time, but also, man, everybody out there was doing a post game instant reaction. I'm like, when did y'all start doing this? Hold up now. We've been doing this on Things Up, but so good time to be had. So about the game though, the atmosphere. Look, if you're on the FAMU side, it was straight. If you're on the Jackson State side, it was non-existent. And honestly, the crowd for Jackson State was sparse. And if you got a problem with that, that's your business. But at the same point, this is one of those things with the OBC where, for those of y'all that are like bam on the drum, against AD Sykes, asking why we might pull out this game. That's why. FAMU would be potentially playing back-to-back games in Miami. Good luck. Because I'll be honest, for me, I would consider making that trip because I've never gone to a University of Miami football game. So I'd want to see like the smoke and all that stuff. But if it was another OBC, I'd be like, I've seen this before. Especially if it was, Jackson State again, or if it was South Carolina State, I might. But still, like, it would be a little push. And for one of those games, I'm not getting a hotel. Like, I'm just doing a turn and burn. So you can kind of see where, when you looked on the Jackson State side, the effects of playing multiple away games to open the season and how it affects attendance. And then going forward, how does that attendance affect the bottom line? That's the question I'm going to ask. And then hopefully it's an answer that I would be able to get later on. So we're going to see, man. Just a thought, just an idea. Now, FAMU side, though, the lower bowl was straight. The upper bowl was pretty much empty. So, but it was good. It was good. And I did walk around the stadium. Like, it's the first time I ever did it. I am a stadium nerd. Like, I like to get there early, walk around, see what stadiums look like. And in this case, I'll be honest with you, it was pretty cool. Like, I thought the stadium, being able to walk around it and see all sides of it, I could notice, one, the temperature difference. Because my first season, I sat in that end zone. I believe it's the north end zone. Last season, I was in the box. Where this year, I went all around. And you can even see where Ken Clark talked about it after the game, about the temperature difference. Like, yeah, it was. And it wasn't as hot as it was last year. So you could kind of imagine how it could have been advantageous just to be in the sun compared to last year. So yeah, it was straight. And other thing, before we kind of finish jumping to the game, man, it was a who's who as far as like FAMU and Jackson State pundits in the press room. I mean, you had the ONG Strike Zone, you had Ken Clark and Zoe. Was it She Loves Thee? She was there. I saw her on the elevator. She left kind of early. But she was there. I mean, you got to kind of see a lot of your big voices that are constantly talking about the two programs. They were there, and it was really cool. I'll be honest, kind of coming in, I saw Ken Clark and then walk in. I was like, oh yeah, I got to dap these brothers up, man. So, and they were really cool. They were not, they weren't kind of any kind of way about anything. Just real cool dudes. Honestly, she loves he didn't really speak, but it wasn't because it's just because I didn't recognize her, and then so didn't really go out of our way to make acquaintances. But it was cool, good experience. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Now, as far as, let's kind of look at this game, and I'm gonna look at the offense, look at the defense, and the special teams. Kind of give you my good. I'm not gonna do good, bad, ugly like the ONG did, but I'm gonna point out the elephant in the room, and obviously gonna address some of the things that we talked about post game, as far as the interviewing of the coaches. So slap myself on the wrist for saying So the game opens up. That opening kick was it. Opening kick was huge. I was rewatching the game just now because honestly, in the moment, it was not pandemonium because you don't have a big enough crowd for it to be pandemonium, but it was excitement. And I'm gonna corroborate the story. If you watch the instant reaction by ONG Strike Zone, it was hilarious because I know for me in the press box, I come in and I have jokes, and sometimes they're not always nice, but at the same point, that's for me. I kind of have to find a way to offset my fandom, and so I'll talk to some of my peers around me. We're kind of joking, chide each other a little bit, but at the same point, talk and tell stories. But for me, that's how I cope with not being able to cheer. Because otherwise, I'm a fan. I am darn near fanatical with my love for Florida A&M University. And it was hilarious because the kick happens, the ball's in the air. All of a sudden, Riley has the ball, and Riley gets the ball. He's running down the field, and you're seeing Riley run down the field. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see Brian from the OG strike zone, and Brian takes off. And Brian's trying not to cheer. It's like, bro, you can't cheer. Bro, you can't cheer. Bro, you can't cheer. Because in the press box, you are not allowed to cheer. And you could see the joy in his heart just to kind of have that moment. And it was just awesome. Like and I definitely remember as the game started, first thing I said was, "I'm gonna kick their ass." Like I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. I was sitting there, I was like, Musa got that bop to him. Like these dudes are not friendly. Like our FAMU players are normally like friendly and dapping people up and all the little bro hug bull junk. And it wasn't a bunch of that going on. It was, let's get this game started, let's kick some ass and go home. And honestly, the first half is what it was. After that, we saw where FAMU offensively, and I'll go into the offense. The first half, FAMU's offense was dominant. I really don't want to use that phrasing because that's a term I'm really associating more so with Jackson State and the Deion Sanders era. That was their thing. So for me to use it is really to steal something from them. But they were the FAMU's the line of scrimmage, and we established the run. That was one of the big things. I saw new formations and formations I really haven't seen FAMU utilize until we get near the goal line, where you saw where FAMU Moose under center. We're running two tight end sets. That's some of our goal line concepts from last year, especially. I can distinctly remember us using formations like that against Alabama A&M. I definitely have a video of it. I mean, I have it queued up and ready to go. I do have. This is from last year. Alabama A&M, Terrell Jennings. Like that's kind of some of the stuff we saw early in the game, and that again, that film is from last year. That's not one from the game from this year, but you can start to see like we ran some of those heavy formations very early in the game, which was a surprise, but it was also, I don't want to say a feather in the cap, but it was a token of appreciation as a fan because you could hear where us as pundits were saying FAMU needs to establish a run. Not that Coach Simmons is listening to us, but it's the you see the same thing I see type deal. That was huge for me. And seeing that we saw where Jennings and Yant, who both finished today with more than 70 yards, 140 yards total between two backs. You had three backs combined for over almost 200 yards. I mean, FAMU as a total has 200 yards rushing. It's a really beautiful thing, and it's really a complete flip from last year. It's a complete 180. Honestly, 360s to go all the way around back to where you were. Offensively, you saw where we were physical. The offensive linemen, they were explosive, coming off the line of scrimmage, aggressive, and very good discipline for the most part from the offensive line. Like that's one of the things that I think went unsung. I don't think a lot of those who kind of went and did the post game things noticed that and gave them their credit. The offensive line was very efficient, but they were also very good about keeping their hands where they were supposed to be. We did see where one of our tight ends, that holding call was justified. It was a good call. I'm not one of those people that makes excuses as far as with the refs when there's not one. But in that case, the tight end's hands got outside of the shoulder of the man he was blocking. So it was a justified call. It was a good call. But we saw where they were very physical. And we also saw Musa get under center. And I just thought that gave a different dynamic to the game because to me, just as my person, especially early on, and we abandoned this later on, I felt like that was a mistake. we ran under center and it opened up a play action pass that should have been a touchdown. Musa should have hit that pass and Riley should have caught it. Like one of the things that was said was that Musa did struggle with accuracy at times. That's not a fallacy. But the other part is we had some drop passes. We didn't have a ton of them, but we had about, I know one off the top of my head. I'm going to say 2 to 3 that were drops that we could have had. But you were able to see some guys step up, man, new guys. And it went back to that question of the receiver room. Who is going to be the man? Who's going to be the one to step up? K. Dot, Jamari Shareed. And that was one of the funny points in the press room. Every time Jamari Shareed makes a play, and that man calls him everything but Jamari Shareed. Like he said Sherrod so many times that you heard everyone say Shareed. It was just like us like being constantly petty because that's how we are about our players. We want you to say their names right. The other thing that I saw though, besides Musa being under center, and that really helped that play action pass get off, FAMU's offense was much more, I felt, imaginative. I just pointed out we saw some different formations with the double tight end set. We saw a under center play action pass, which we really haven't seen in a while. And what I noticed as far as FAMU being imaginative with the play calling, there weren't trick plays. Normally, FAMU's imagination as far as in our ingenuity in the way of our football team comes from trick plays. Now, we did see the Isaiah, Isaiah, I was going to say Isaiah Lane, Xavier Smith wheel route that wasn't executed. It was missed. But we still saw where we were solid. We looked good. Hey, Miss Williams, how you doing? Oh, they watch it and they roll it. Okay, y'all be safe while you're on the road. That is a long ride. They took the ride from Georgia. But it was a good event, man. A lot of fun. I didn't even upload all the pictures from the event. I may have to throw some of them up there on Thursday when we come back 8 o'clock. But that was the other thing. Like the early offense was imaginative. It was exciting. It was something where you were constantly getting different formations, different looks. And I thought that helped kind of calm the offense down. I felt like it helped get Musa in a rhythm because all of a sudden the defense was thrown off. I felt like once FAMU got up to that 21-0 lead, you went back to some of your SOS formations. Some of that was that same old stuff that you just run, where it's shotgun formation, running back sidecar, draw play. Running back sidecar, sweep. Running back sidecar, counter. It's the same stuff. And we abandoned what I thought was working. And really until that they near the end of the third quarter and really late into those drives when we try to hit so many of those shot plays where, Musa overthrows and he misses. And I'm not overly critical of Musa missing those passes. It's the first game of the season. That's going to happen. First game of the season, and you lost your leading receiver who's in the NFL on the practice squad. Again, when's the last time FAMU had a receiver in the NFL? Maybe Kevin Elliott. We're talking like 2005, Buffalo Bills, and we saw what he did when he was with them. I mean, so that's telling you that's the kind of productivity you lost. K-Dot was kind of injured last year. So now you get him back, but then all of a sudden you start seeing the receiving core kind of start to show a little bit. We didn't hit, but some of that I don't put on Musa. Sometimes I put that on personnel. I'm not a tall person, and I would jokingly tell anybody, short recognizes short. I'm about 5'8", 5'9", and I can normally recognize if you're not 6 feet. You got non-6 footers running routes that probably require people that have or need or that have longer legs. You got 5'9", 5'6", 5'7" guys running corner routes where they're supposed to run under the ball. It kind of is what it is. You may want to get one of your 6 footers chasing that ball where they got the extra legs, they got the longer stride. It's just some of those nuances of the game that we missed, and we definitely underutilized tight ends. Like, yeah. Now the second half of the game, complete, complete. We nothing. We got nothing offensively. We didn't score. The special teams was hot garbage as far as the kicking team. Now everything else, yeah, they were good, but you can't have that many kicks blocked. And I asked Willie Simmons a question because I was probably the Debbie Downer in the room. Like, what was up with that? And he's like, I'm taking that over. And especially on that second kick, what he's going to notice is on that left side, the blocker got bull rushed. Like, I think it was 63. He's falling over. Like, you go back and watch the film, you can see him doing like this. It's like, that's going to get blocked. And I distinctly remember when we were going for that kick, like, just punt it. And they're looking at me like, ha ha ha, why would you punt there? I'm like, they're not going to block for the guy. It's not going to work. And it got blocked. And I said, y'all go listen to me about the special teams at some point. I told y'all earlier, like, I just got a weird thing about that. Like, I can normally tell if your kicker's going to miss it. And it was just one of those things where it's like, this kid's not comfortable. We've already got one block. The blockers aren't comfortable. Something is amiss. And it got blocked twice. And Jackson State's got some type of weird Virginia Tech Jedi mind tricks that they have against FAMU that it just works. I don't know what it is, but they got it. Now, the running back rule, look, tote game was tote. Over 200 yards, and it was running back by committee. Yant, Jennings, Dean. We also saw Will Lloyd get in there. Even Musa had a decent run. I've been telling y'all, Musa can run. I've said it for months. People just want to, hey, Musa's a statue. Like, no, he's not a statue. Musa's not a statue. Musa's not a statue. Musa is calculated. Musa was not, in my personal opinion, an active runner because he didn't want to get hurt. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, if I get hurt, this adversely affects my team's ability to win a championship. And that's all I'm here for. And that, honestly, we saw that. And when Musa did run, I mean, he got sacked at the end of the game. He's a capable runner. Is he Michael Vick? Hell no. He's more like an Aaron Rodgers. But what he does well, he moves the pocket. He does really well at being able to navigate. And so that's just where I was with that. But got to work on the passing percentages. And that was something post-game, Willie Simmons, Musa, they both admitted 12 for 22, 54%, 6.8 yards per pass, QBR, college QBR of 141, NFL QBR, that'd be a 106. A little shaky, not great. But the big thing is he has 2 touchdowns. He also had no picks. Should have had a pick, but we have no picks in that situation. So for me, what I want for Musa, I don't need him to be a gunslinger. He is. I said it before. I'm comfortable with Musa being a game manager. And I feel like if Musa has a good season as a game manager, I think that actually improves his stats. Because what's going to become of it is that he's going to be seen as a quarterback that takes care of the ball, that does have the arm. Musa has a beautiful arm, like no weird stuff. But Buddy throws a very catchable ball. He has the capability of putting the ball where it needs to be. No homo. But he is like a very capable quarterback. And that's just, for me, that's all I really need Musa to be. I think he had the best success and as I pointed out previously, when Musa can do the dink and dunk stuff, it helps him. Now, sometimes it kicks him in the butt because he's smart. Like, you can tell dude is hella smart. And his pre-snap read sometimes, he's like, yep, that's where I'm supposed to go with it. And he just goes where maybe, slow up a second. But yeah, like when he gets in a rhythm, it's a problem. In the first half, Musa did get in a rhythm. Now he gets out of rhythm later in the game, but I think part of it is we start going for home run shots. Like, you start going for uppercuts instead of your jabs are working. Like jabs, punches, you swinging for uppercuts. Like, Nah, I don't think that worked well. Defensively, what I said, and for those who missed it, I didn't say it this time. I was wrong. I said FAMU by 20. We won by 18. It's 2 points off. Should have had my FAMU by 20. Oh, I love it. Look, OL should carry the offense. Will, you're right. The offensive line should carry this offense. Let us run our way to a championship. And before we get into the defense, and I'm gonna put that back up there. The OL should carry this offense. This is the advantage that FAMU has over every other SWAC team when it comes to if they can make it to the Celebration Bowl. FAMU is built like a MEAC team. That's one thing they never stopped doing. FAMU never changed its team building and its team makeup. It just, FAMU still runs that up-tempo offense. So since we run the up-tempo offense and that spread offense, it fits the SWAC mindset and the SWAC kind of idea of football. But it's very easy for FAMU to revert back to being a MEAC team. And I think that's an advantage that FAMU has that a lot of teams in the Southwestern Athletic Conference don't have, where they're still going to kind of lean more towards that spread football where FAMU can just sit up there, line it up and say, okay, ground and pound it is. And that's one of the things that honestly it worked. Like the other thing nobody's pointing to in this defeat of Jackson State, because some of us are just so busy celebrating the win. This is the physical stuff that we saw in the Celebration Bowl, both of them. North Carolina Central and South Carolina State, in their victories over Jackson State, dominated them physically. They had a dominant line of scrimmage on both sides, but they also had a skill position player that just stepped up. The South Carolina State, it was Shaq Davis. Like Shaq Davis, their receiver, carried them skill-wise. And honestly, as far as North Carolina Central, look, it's that quarterback. Like that dude's different. And he's probably the best quarterback in HBCU sports right now, respectfully. Yeah. Whew. Look, that's a great segue to the defensive line. FAMU's defensive line and offensive line should be favored in every conference game. I concur, because Anthony Dunn was living in the backfield like it was the Classic again. Like it looked like the Florida Classic, and we were playing Cookman all over again. He was wrecking shop. The ends, again, both were in the backfield all game. General Hunt was wearing out their interior line. I mean, their running back, he ran for 80 yards, but that dude, I believe his name is Mulligan, solid back, averaged 4.8 yards per carry, but still, he was pretty much the extent of their offense. The linebackers, really unsung. They did what they're supposed to do. I mean, that's FAMU's linebackers. They're not going to do anything special for you as far as like stat line wise. They're going to get you tackles. They might get an interception and a fumble recovery, but you're not going to get blown away by a lot of their stuff during the game, because what they're being asked to do is don't F up. Like that's really what you're asking them to do. You're not asking them to do a bunch of crazy blitzing. Like, no, we rely on the defensive line for that. So that's one of the downsides of playing linebacker at FAMU, is that we're not going to ask you to do a lot of blitzing. We're asking you to probably stay in coverage. If you can cover and you can make tackles, see ball, hit ball, you're good. But they were good. Like, they did what they were supposed to do. FAMU linebackers are going to be unsung. Hopefully it's something that we highlight during the season, but they do everything they're supposed to. Now, the secondary, it was solid for most of the game. We had two major coverage busts. One was early, where honestly, that was just a good ball. Like quarterback throws a great ball. That's a dime, and he throws it in a place where only his receiver can get it, and against a great corner and Kendall. And then you had the deep ball, which I think that was when we started trying to shuffle the backups in. We probably tried to put the backups in a little too early, in retrospect. And of course, hindsight is 2020. But you get like your second, third guy back there, and he got burnt. Like, yeah, tried to pass interfere the guy, and it still didn't work. So, yeah. And then my big takeaway though, as far as defense, we missed a lot of tackles. Like we missed out on like 3 or 4 sacks because we missed tackles. Like that's something we need to work on. And going into the next game, we are working condition. Um, just because, yeah, our players did get cramps. You're not going to have the benefit of being covered by a shade. Granted, if you've been to Raymond James Stadium, it actually gets pretty cool. Like it's hot when it's hot, but once it gets dark, you get a pretty decent breeze in that stadium. It's actually a really comfortable facility. Um, and the concourses are solid. Like it's a nice NFL stadium. Not gonna lie to you, and it doesn't show its age. Like you wouldn't think that stadium's almost 30 years old. I want to say. I know it's a good 20, but it's darn near 30 years old. Doesn't look it. Excuse me. But you're gonna have to work on that. Like we got to work on tackling, and we're gonna have to work on number 4 knees. Look. He put a lick on somebody early though. Um, but we're gonna have to work on conditioning because South Florida runs a lot of plays. We're gonna look at that on Thursday, 8 o'clock. But they run a lot of plays. They ran like 90 plays. You got to consider we now have a running clock. So FAMU ran about 60. Uh, South Florida ran about 90. I got that from O&G. So appreciate it, Brian and Kelvin. So give credit where credit is due. Got my history degree. So I got to make sure I cite the people I get history information from. So, but my key takeaways from the game, kind of looking back retrospectively, and man, I'm gonna have to make sure that I do the mic the way I did it today. I'm gonna listen, but it already sounds better. Great fan experience. Like I got to meet Chad Johnson, also known as Ocho Cinco, post game. Like, let's continue to use him as a ambassador for the university. Very personable dude. Like, cause he was on his way out. He's like, I got to go. And I was like, can I get a picture? He's like, sure, come on. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I hope FAMU does come back to the OBC. Granted, post game, look, George, you on my list because you were supposed to. You just dropped the ball. And the big thing, FAMU ends the streak. Like this is a 4-game losing streak that ended. And I'll be honest, this is a rivalry now. Like I can call this a rivalry. I don't consider things rivalries when both teams ain't winning. If only one team's winning, it's an ass whipping. It's not a rivalry. You just don't like them. Like, I'm sorry. if your parent is steady whipping your butt is for doing the wrong thing, you're not supposed to fight back. You're doing the wrong thing. But in this situation, look, Jackson State was beating us, and we did nothing about it for 20 years. Granted, there's only 4 games in that time. This is game number 5, but it wasn't a rivalry. At this point, it can be considered a rivalry. You finally won a game. And if we're being honest, if you're looking at the trajectory of the 2 programs and the way FAMU's been able to utilize the transfer portal, this is the time where you might be able to get a nice little run. And mention the ending of streaks. This is where Willie Simmons shines. Willie Simmons has been the coach that ends streaks. He ends the streak in the Florida Classic. A 10-year streak, Willie Simmons ends. FAMU did not beat Cookman for almost 10 years. He ends that streak. Doubles down, and ends a 20-year losing streak. Look, we need to find somebody we ain't beaten 30 years and put him on the schedule tomorrow. Because it's just the way Willie Simmons is going. I know Willie watches the show sometimes he don't. But again, Coach Simmons is ending streaks that don't make FAMU look good. Like, look, my parents graduated from James. It's a robbery in our house. Look, it's a robbery now because the last couple years, man, we used to be getting beat. My other takeaway, TC is actually a decent coach. Like, I didn't think he was stupid. I'll say that. I just didn't know what kind of coach he was. He's solid, and he's a lot more humble than the previous coach. I'll say it like that. Post game, it was a lot less of the why you ask me these kind of questions, a lot more of like, okay, cool, I'll listen to it. Even as he left, he said thank you, like, and he was very candid. He walked in, they asked him an opening question. He's like, "We lost. We got our butts kicked." Like, it wasn't even a him and hawing situation. It was straight up, and he was really cool, really respectful. So I came away impressed by TC. Just much more as far as the one-on-one interaction. I appreciate it. As far as OBC, this could be a huge event in the future. Problem is they need to be strategic about the time of this game, just because one of the problems that we saw in this game from the Jackson State perspective, and I saw where She Loves Z posted this, like, y'all expect us to travel here, travel there, travel here, travel there. Jackson State's first 4 games are away. First game was in Atlanta. Second game was in Miami. Third game is in Baton Rouge. I think the fourth game is going to be at Texas State, one of those. That's a lot of travel. And that's a big ask for your fan base. I know for me personally, like, even covering it outside the state, unless we go to Celebration Bowl, I'm not doing it this year. I did intend to go to Houston, but something happened, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'll go next year. But you got to kind of be cognizant of that. You can't just say because they're cutting checks that people are coming. You do have to consider that. Like, if they cutting checks either way, it is. But when we start looking at what happened last night, and I'm not referencing the FAMU game, I'm actually referencing the Florida State game. I think Florida State and LSU were guaranteed $5 million apiece, but it was also contingent that they sold a certain amount of tickets. You're going to start, me personally, I'm going to speculate with no whatever in front of me. That's going to be part of these new classic deals. Unless you start taking ownership of these, that if you don't get a certain amount of people to show up to this game, I ain't cutting you this check, because I can't justify paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars when I'm making, a certain amount. So you're not wrong. Like, some in the fan base, mentioning that trash talk, man. Rattlers, talk your stuff. Like, I'm saying that because for really 2 years now, it hasn't been the full 20, but for the past 2 years, man, the trash talk has been strong, and the trash talk has been consistent. And we had to hear about 59-3 for a whole year and couldn't say nothing. We had to hear about a 1-point loss for a whole year. Couldn't say nothing about it. I think Brian said something like 300 days since FAMU's been able to brag. I'm telling y'all now, you're not going to stop my man Earl from talking trash. Earl is on your tail all season long, and it's well-deserved. Sometimes the funny part of talking trash is that if you can't handle it, don't do it. I'm not a big trash talker. I tell people straight up. FAMU by 20 was like me walking out on a limb. And honestly, it was because I believed it. Like, I'm one of those, I don't talk a lot of trash. I'm not going to sit up there and stand across you and tell you I'm going to beat your butt because of this. No. I'm going to do it. And if I feel like I'm not as confident in it, I'll back off my comments. Go back and look last year when he started talking about that first game of Guinness. He's like, yeah. And then as it got closer, I was like, I don't know, y'all. I didn't see 59-3. But so the trash talk, if you're a Jackson State fan, man, look, you got 360 some odd days of trash talk. Y'all gonna hear it. But then what we saw FAMU was not complete. We only played a half of football. That was really good. Defense gave me 4. Defense gave me 4 quarters. Offense, you gave me a quarter and a half. I can't even say you gave me a whole half. Go back and watch that game. The opening kick, that's special teams. That's not offense. The special teams broke that. Without that, the game is 21-10. I mean, a lot closer than you start when you start kind of looking at that. And now FAMU left 30 points on the field, though. We should have had 50, if not 60. FAMU left 30 points on the board. That's something that you can't do. And then the other part is, and this is why I asked Coach Simmons the question about the kicking game. You got to fix that. You got to fix that, because the problem was you could have had those kicks returned. And that could have turned into an opportunity for those teams, or that team in particular, to score. That's 14 points Jackson State left on the board right there. If you give them that 14 points, all of a sudden we're talking about a 28-24 game, and you over there biting nails. Like, this game could have gone very differently, but it worked in our favor. It is for some of those that are going to be Jackson fans that are going to say, hey, we did it to ourselves, kind of steal the Willie Simmons comment. You're not wrong, but you're also not completely right, because you had the wrong guy at quarterback, kind of, but it's really because you put the best quarterback in there. You didn't put the best quarterback that would give you a win against FAMU in there. We've seen this. FAMU struggles against quarterbacks that are mobile, because what those mobile quarterbacks do is they force you to stay in that zone defense. But then what happens is the eye discipline, which was the first thing that I questioned about last week, was, will we have eye discipline? And we did. But once you start getting a mobile quarterback in there against FAMU, it challenges our eye discipline, because once that quarterback starts running and starts getting yards, all of a sudden corners, safeties, linebackers come up to try to mitigate his ability to run and move around the pocket. And then that opens up receivers that get open. And with the zone, that's what's going to happen. With the zone, you're going to have that happen. Now, the other thing, and I forgot to mention this for the defense, my other takeaway, FAMU ran some man. And I said I'd pay good money for us to see some man. I'll thank you. Now, I'll say going forward, can I get a man defense with a spy? We have a problem. We have a tell. Like, for instance, Jackson State's right guard has a tell. When they're running, he fidgets. I noticed that early. I think our defensive line picked up on it too. And you start seeing him kind of get a little fidgety, and he struggled to stay set, like stay still in his set. Look, that didn't cost you nothing if you're playing against him. But you could tell he was kind of fidgety a little bit. FAMU has a problem guarding mobile quarterbacks. That means you need to either man-to-man defense, and this is where you use that depth. You move a safety down to linebacker, make him your spy. He spies the quarterback. All of a sudden, it becomes one of those things where the quarterback's not running so much because he has a necessary speed advantage. And you could even, I'll be honest, I don't have them all. I ain't gonna lie to you. If you really want to deal with a guy that, or a quarterback that's a true athlete, put your best athlete as the spy. Put a guy like Tevin Griffey in there as spy and say, you spy the quarterback. Now you have a corner with cornerback speed spying a quarterback. And 9 times out of 10, those quarterbacks they're not the best as far as being able to move and throw accurately. But that's just some of the nuances of the game that you have to do, because you're going to see where your linebackers are going to struggle to stick with a quarterback that has running back speed. So if that's the issue, put a person with running back speed against that quarterback. And then all of a sudden, in the moments and times where that quarterback decides, nope, I'm gonna hold on to the ball, you have an extra man in coverage who's has a natural coverage ability. So it's just some of those nuances of the game that sometimes I don't think we utilize and I don't think we notice. But you start thinking about it, and you're like, damn, that's an idea. That ain't cost you nothing, but that's an idea. We're gonna see mobile quarterbacks when we play hell South Florida, but when we play Alabama State, we're gonna see these quarterbacks that are extremely mobile that are gonna really cause problems for our offense. I mean our defense, excuse me. And to combat that, instead of being stubborn and being so personnel focused as far as this guy's a linebacker, this guy's a corner, you got to take the Jalen Rose model. One thing I miss Jalen and Jacoby, but Jalen Rose would often say about basketball players, positions were created so novice could follow the game. And it's very true. Like once you start thinking like, okay, this guy's a 2 guard, this guy's a 1, this guy's a 3, it limits what you can do. But all of a sudden, when you start being like, okay, LeBron's really a 3, he's not a 2. I can't compare him to a 2, but I can put him in a 2. Then that starts to open up mismatches. I think that's something that FAMU can exploit. You can move either like especially for your short quarterbacks. A Tevin Griffey works well because he's not very tall, but he's extremely fast. And he's so whereas that are still mobile but bigger, especially Davies Richardson. That's where you put a safety there. And all of a sudden, you still have your 4-2-5 base, but one of your linebackers turns and switches to the safety. I think that's some of the nuances that you have to have and some of the ideas you have to have if you're going to win championships because FAMU's defense is dominant, period. But you also have to be nuanced and smart about this. And some of the smartness in this comes into saying, this is my personnel. This is what I can do. And that's what we saw on offense last year. I have a 5'10", 5'11" receiver that runs great routes and has great hands. It doesn't make sense for me to throw jump balls. But if I run these routes and I put him in motion, all of a sudden, pick, he gets open. I hit him when he's open, and now he's running after the catch. Some of the things that FAMU needs to do defensively, me personally, when we start preparing for these teams that are going to have mobile quarterbacks, again, I was very critical of the zone defense. I was glad to see that we abandoned it at times, but we saw in the second half of this game where it bit us in the tail again. And some of it was we needed to put a spy out there. And you need a spy that can keep up with the quarterback because we saw where Jackson State's quarterback rolled to the left or rolled to the right. He'd buy additional time. And part of the reason he could do that was because whoever was covering him or in that zone either wasn't spying him or wasn't fast enough to really make him pay attention. If you put somebody that's going to really make him commit and you stay in that man-to-man or what have you, all of a sudden that opens up new things. And then that also allows you to do some of what you used to do with BJ Bowler in blitz. Like all of a sudden that 4-2-5 with a corner or a safety there, that's a blitzer that's running a 4-3 or a 4-4. Look, if he can get behind a defensive end that can chip somebody, all of a sudden that creates a havoc play. That creates an opportunity for a turnover. So it's just some of those things that I'm looking for as a fan, but also as somebody who's sitting up there and able to see a lot of the field that I'm going to be looking for during the season. And hopefully I get to see, especially at USF. I think USF, this needs to be your greatest coaching moment for the season because in some ways the scholarships are going to matter. But in other ways, you can scheme this up because this is a new offense. They're hungry. They're coming off of a loss. And they're looking at you like, yeah, we can beat this team. They're going to overlook you. This is a chance for you to get a win. So, but man, it's almost been an hour. Y'all know I don't normally go this long, but this is a fun time, man. It's a great time for us to be excited. We're going to talk about the FAMU USF game Thursday, 8 o'clock here on HBCU Digital. I got to fix my RSS feed went out on me somehow. So it's my fault. I did something wrong. I'll wear it. I don't know if I did or didn't, but I'll wear it. But that being stated, man, look, HBCU Digital Network, this is home to Herb Stewart and the Black Techies. Check us out, man. We are going to be doing some more visits. We're going to be at these home games. Hopefully we'll be at Tampa on Saturday. Credentials came through, so just got to make sure we ready to go. So until Thursday, 8 o'clock on HBCU Digital Network, also on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Gonna update the HBCU Digital website, Fangs Up website, to make sure we get the latest episodes up there. Also gonna be on Spotify, your favorite podcasting platforms. We there too. But check us out, man. But as always, it's gonna be Fangs Up.
Yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Now let's get it started.
Are you kidding me? Unreal!
While our HBCUs are mostly known for academic rigor, community, they also know how to turn up.
Does he have it?